second for it to kind of register for everybody. Good morning, good morning. A little crooked.
Let us know if you're here so we know who we're talking to. I've got allergies. I'm sorry if I sniffed the whole time.
I'm all better. I was all sniffly a couple of weeks ago. It just takes a second to refresh sometimes. There it goes.
There it goes. All right, cool.
Good morning.
All right.
You ready?
Mm-hmm. We'll get it going.
Run.
Let's go. Welcome to Books We've Never Read.
Except for those we have.
I'm Jason.
I'm Nicole.
And today is our last episode for Childhood's End by Arthur C. Clarke, part 3, according to our readings. So if this is not the video that you thought it was, don't watch it. There's 2 other parts.
Yeah.
We will ruin the ending.
Yep. This is the end. We talk about our weekly readings as if you have read along as well. We've got Peggy in the chat. Good morning. A saline wash will help that nose.
Pricing.
Helps if it all flows. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Let's do our housekeeping bits.
So
there's like stuff we read every week at the beginning of the book.
yeah, but you kind of said it. We've read lots of other books. So if this is your first time visiting our channel, please check out our playlists. If you do want to watch the other Arthur C. Clarke, Morning Allison, other Arthur C. Clarke, Childhood and it's all playlisted. So that's all I'm trying to say. Yeah. We've got playlists. We've read all kinds of other stuff.
Yep.
So.
And we've announced our next book already, Salvage the Bones by Jesmyn Ward. We're going to put out a syllabus for that presently because we have to start reading that today for our episode next week.
Yeah.
So it'll be, it's, I guess, historical fiction, but it's like close history. So, you know, contemporary historical fiction.
Yeah, it takes place in the days before Hurricane Katrina hit in southern Mississippi.
Yeah.
So,
you know, very excited about that. We hope you will all join us for that.
It'll be a big shift in gears from sci-fi, which I'm looking forward to because I didn't enjoy.
Well, let's go
this
ahead.
Book.
Let's do it.
I didn't dislike it. It just didn't do anything for me.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I just finished it like 10 minutes ago. I'll be honest, but
I finished it like Sunday.
Yeah.
Last Sunday.
Well, so now, you know, here we are at the end of the book. What were your issues? Like why is it not your favorite?
Okay, well I will say part 3 was my favorite.
Okay.
You know, so and I did enjoy part 3. And so maybe had we not split this into 3, maybe if I would have just read this like a normal person, you know, like normally, not like book club, maybe I would have forgotten how much I didn't like parts 1 and 2 as I read through them. It was just dry, you know. Yeah. It wasn't full of rich, cool details, but part 3 kind of was. You know, I loved the descriptions of New Athens and Sparta. I loved Jan's whole, you know, journey to and back to Earth, you know, to wherever and then back to Earth. And especially the ending of Jan describing the end of the Earth. Yeah.
You know, I don't think, and I could be wrong, but I don't think science fiction in general is particularly descriptive or colorful. Like, it's written by people who have ideas, not people who have
literary prowess.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's always the case, and I'm not saying that they're bad writers either, because they're certainly doing better than I could. But like being a little flat is kind of the deal, you know. Even some of like the big ones, right? Like and this is an important book, but like I think about like Ender's Game or something, like it's a little more descriptive, but not terribly so, I don't think.
I found it to be a novel.
Yeah.
A story.
Yeah.
You know, so this was like principles. Ender's Game was a story with principles. You know?
Yeah.
So it was just dry. Just especially part 1.
Well, and I think we talked about this, or else I talked to somebody else about it, but I think too that the book was not descriptive because it was written in 1952, right? We hadn't even been to the moon yet. Like nothing had happened, and he was trying to describe things that he really couldn't imagine, A, and B, he wanted to be describing things that like the human beings could not possibly comprehend, right? And so I kind of compared it to um, like the Asian paintings that we talked about in Three Body with that work with like negative space, right? Like he had to provide you sort of like this outline, and then you had to fill in the details.
There's so much data, but nothing to see.
Yeah, like how difficult must that be? And I thought that was really cool because ever since Three Body, I'm really interested in like that particular kind of painting, and I very much saw this as that sort of painting but with words, and so I found it like incredibly beautiful, like but in that way, in the fact that there was nothing there, I think. So.
Yeah. So speaking of things to unpack, right? There's a lot of data here. So we've learned about the overlords and we've learned about the overmind. And the overlords really are slaves, not slaves, but they're not free.
Right.
They're doing the work for the overmind. They're jealous of humans because we'll be able to be absorbed into that overmind and they will not. And so they have things that we can't have, which is the ability to travel the universe and to understand things and to know about other life forms. But we have something that they can't have, and that's the ability to not have to do all those things, just to be absorbed into the overmind and move higher, but having left humanity behind.
Yeah, so that sentiment of the overlords is the only part of the book I did not really care for.
Yeah.
Because they are very forthcoming that they don't understand the overmind, right? And so here they are, clearly like jealous of species that can go and then join it, but they don't understand what it is that they're joining, right? For all you know, it's a being of infinite pain, and the only way that it can lessen its pain is by adding to itself so that there's more place for the pain. But like, I don't know. You don't know.
Yeah, I disagree with them there too. I would much rather be the overlord in this.
Well, and like so I mean, it doesn't even make sense to like be jealous of humans because they don't exist anymore, right? Like they're not there.
But there's peace, right? There's an end.
You can go die, right? Like
the overlords don't seem to. They kind of live forever.
Yeah, but like you could blow your spaceship up or something, right? Like you could do whatever it took, and then it's functionally the same end as what humans ended up at.
Then there's also this feeling that I assume, Krillin and them have as well of being part of something bigger than yourself, and we see that sentiment a lot now, that's how a lot of people get through tough times is this feeling of I'm part of something bigger that will be rejoined at the end, and
no, that just, and also like to long for something you like know you can't have, whatever that means, right? Just y'all can have to get over it, man.
So you don't feel bad for the overlords at all?
Not really. I think any of their like mental suffering that they have is self-inflicted, right? I think it's like a weird desire to want to have to go join a thing that you don't understand and to like hold it up as like the greatest good that could possibly happen to something,
Well, I don't know that it's the greatest good, but it's
I mean, it really seems that
inevitable for all capable species. And so they're just not able to end. They just have to keep going as the carrier.
Yeah. But like to want to end, right? Like it's fundamentally different from what human beings want. Human beings assume and want to go forever, right? They want to be the overlords. Like so, I guess it's like a tragedy of I wish we could have swapped places because clearly you guys want to go off and all die or whatever.
And to become.
Well, but they don't know that. They don't understand what this thing is or where it came from. If there's really an annihilation of like the self as is described, there is no becoming, right? That's not true.
You've just been consumed.
Yeah, that's not true.
Borg.
I mean, it's the same way that people are like, well, when I die, I want to get buried so I can become a tree. You don't become nothing. You're gone, right?
Well, you're bits and pieces.
Whatever, but that ain't you, and you like you don't become anything, right? You are gone, and then the body that is left, right, can go off and do whatever.
Bits and pieces. You're all part of your pieces.
I'm not disagreeing with that, but like there's like this weird idea there, right? That of even that is a desire to continue, right? It's just a weird sentiment to me to like want to go and become part of the Borg.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to become. I would want to be, in Carolyn's position. I would want to be able to explore the universe and continue. I would hate the fact that I'm part of this like manipulative situation, where I'm just hovering over a species for a couple of 100 years for them to get ready, just to be absorbed.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
I don't know. I mean, like Peggy points out that like he made very clear that he didn't want to be there.
Mm-hmm.
At the beginning of the thing, and like this is just his job. And I'm not sure that it was like manipulative. It seems that it was going to be an inevitability that like there was something that happened here that triggered the overmind to like, okay, this species is about to like ascend and I can absorb it, you know. And so it sent out the overlords to show up and hang out. And then just like make sure that we didn't like psychically really what the problem is that they wanted to make sure that we didn't open the door to whatever else is out there before we could be assimilated into itself, which is apparently wiser than doing all that, right? So but so like there was real risk. I mean, like,
Yeah, how cool would it have been though if we would have been the ones to like reach out to someone else, and then we could have launched this huge war, the overminds and the
maybe that's for the best,
and
right?
the over whatever.
Maybe the overmind is sort of like a keep your enemies closer kind of thing, right? Like I'll literally absorb them so that nothing can threaten me. Like it doesn't sound to me like it's all. We don't know anything about it, so we can't know that it is benevolent and peaceful.
And that's interesting, right? Is that we want to think of things in terms of, well, this is going to be benevolent or this is going to be evil. But when you're just looking at organisms, when you look at, parasites and disease and stuff like that, it's not evil and good. It's just nature.
Right.
It's just it's just striving to survive.
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting. And I do like how Arthur C. Clarke kept it neutral like that, because that is essentially all it is, and that is really all we are.
Yeah. One other thing about like the whole becoming the overmind thing is last week I mentioned my idea about like the industrial evolution, and then that's exactly what happened. Chemistry becomes biology, becomes psychology, and then becomes what we don't even know what that next thing is, but all these things give birth to this next thing, and I mean, I didn't know the end of the book. I've never heard anybody discuss it, but like, here's that same idea basically that these things become things. And in my mind, it was always technology, but like I suppose theoretically, that something like this could happen because we don't know everything. Right? Did you read the Afterword?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so I have the Afterword.
Yeah, okay, tell
and it
me
was
about
really good. So at the end of the book, Arthur C. Clarke writes that he wrote the book before we landed on the moon, sort of at the beginnings of space race Cold War issues, and that he had just finished writing a book about humans like conquering the stars and living everywhere or whatever. And so at the beginning of this book, he wrote a little note that just said the views expressed here are not necessarily the views of the author. And what he meant by that was. When it says the stars are not for man, that is specifically like he didn't want people to think that he had changed his mind. And so anyway, the Afterword, which was written sometime after or during the first Bush presidency, so in the 80s somewhere, right? He was actually interested at the time of writing this in paranormal activity and all that stuff, like super interested. And he had 2 television shows that investigated paranormal activity. And in the Afterword, he says, I want y'all to know that now I am a total skeptic. He said 99% of it is not real. He said, I'm skeptical of 99% of all paranormal and psychic activity and 100% of all UFO activity. And so I want to explain the views of the author. The views expressed here are not necessarily the views of the author. I want to expand it to all that. Because in doing the show, I became a total skeptic, and I never found anything that was evidence for that.
Yeah, I mean, have y'all watched The Amazing Randy? Oh, he's the guy. So he's like a professional magician, and he has $1 million check ready in his jacket pocket at all times for someone who can prove they have access to paranormal powers or whatever. And so they explain what their power is, and then he sets up an experiment. And he even checks with them along the way. Will this interfere with your power? Will this interfere with your power? Well, then if not, then we can set this up, and you should still be able to do what you're saying you can do. And they can never do it.
Is that on YouTube?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Okay.
It's so good, and I mean, he's never given away his
$1 million
$1 million.
check. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I just thought that was interesting because I mean, like, how many people, we talked a lot this week about like auras and stuff because somebody told us about like our aura colors, like things like that, right? You want to think like, well, what if that's real? What if that's cool? But like, you know, we just have no evidence for these things. And it was kind of interesting just to see the authors saying like, I thought that maybe this is. I guess what I'm saying is I say that it is potentially possible that that could happen into the future of the human race. And I mean that specifically as like a statistical possibility and not as something that has any evidence whatsoever, right? Like it theoretically could. Um, but
Anything can happen.
Right. But the author also recognized that, right? Because he wrote all these things in because he thought at the time these things could happen.
Yeah,
to
that
us.
this could potentially be the future.
And then he changed his mind. So.
Yeah, but I mean, and that's what's cool about sci-fi, and there's a lot of cool things about sci-fi, right? Like, the cool technologies that we do have came from sci-fi. You imagine that this could be a thing that could help us, and then people are like, well, yeah, we can totally make doors that open automatically.
Right.
Like
right.
No problem. And so that's amazing that we're able to reach into the depths of our imaginations and think of cool solutions to help us along the way.
Yeah.
But also, it's that question of, well, what is next and what are the possibilities of the next step?
Yeah.
Maybe it is psychic stuff. I mean,
well, so
look at flocks of birds. You can have 1,000 birds
and they
moving
don't bump into each other. Yeah.
And just perfect.
Yeah. It would have to be something like that, right? Like pheromones, or I mean, like you could do it electrically, I suppose. But then, like, what if somebody blows up an EMP? Then nobody hears each other anymore.
Yeah.
Or something,
But that's interesting because our bodies are so complex and it does have, all it does have electricity and it does have,
Right. Yeah. I mean, like things like that could happen, but we would have to augment ourselves, right? Again, we're talking about technology making us become something different. And so one other thing that I thought was really interesting was at the end, Jan asks, well, so what happened the first time the overlords came, right? Because there was this prehistory, and Corellin says like, oh, we actually weren't here. We never came. This is our first time. And it's a memory. Don't think of it as a memory. Think of it as a premonition. Right?
Yeah.
And
I thought time is cyclical.
Right.
Yeah.
And so there's a hint there that they like time is more complicated than we're led to believe. And so it's essentially like a genetic memory, but from the future or whatever. And I don't.
So is that where devil stories come from?
Yeah, that's the idea. And so like I don't believe in like poltergeists and all that, but like on a scientific level, if you were to say what if ghosts and stuff are something from like the future come back or whatever, like I don't know, maybe like that. I'm much more willing to believe that UFOs, whatever truth there is to that, would be something from our future than something from another planet. It just seems to make sense that playing with time locally rather than playing with space
would be easier.
Yeah. Or more likely, not easier. Space is probably easier, but more likely, right? And I have no evidence for that. But that's kind of, what if that was what the ghosts and things that people were picking up on? If we have this memory of the overlords from the future and from this like trauma of our end, because that's what he says. Y'all associate us with the end of humanity, and so you have built us in.
This image is the end. Yeah. Very interesting.
Peggy says turtles have a magnet that helps them to return to their place that hatched to mate and lay eggs. All kinds of stuff has that, right?
Right, yeah. Like we've got iron deposit. I don't know if that's actually true.
Yeah, I've heard that.
We've always heard it though that we've got kind of more iron in our system, which can help us have better sense of direction and
like salmon return to the same river. I mean, like all kinds of weird.
And like women typically do have less iron in their systems, and so maybe that's why they're less directionally savvy. I think there's far more other nurture things that make us less directionally savvy. I liked Jeffrey's dreams, when he starts being able to like see the whole universe and he finds his two-dimensional universe and you know what I'm talking about? Yeah. And I was like, oh, everybody.
Has there ever been like a film adaptation of this? I don't even know how you
Well,
got
Greg
started.
Fox mentioned that there was a TV series.
Oh, he did. We
Mm-hmm.
should check that
Mm-hmm.
out.
We gotta finish 3 first.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
But yeah, we'll do a except for those we have on.
Hey, while I've got everybody here, if we have some friends staying with us, and last night we watched Everything Everywhere All at Once, and that has some tie-ins, like thematically to this book, and I highly suggest that movie. It was very good. Yeah. So, I won't say any more than that, but
It was really good. Just hold on for the ride. That's what I'll say. It's worth it.
I have a single favorite line in this
Okay.
book, and it happens in the third part. And I mentioned this to you yesterday, but it's whenever the people of Athens and Sparta decide to blow themselves up because there's no point in going on anymore, and they just kind of sense that it goes on. Anyway, they go out and the nuclear bombs underneath the island explode, and the island rises to meet
The dawn.
the dawn, and that is that's good.
Yeah.
That is rich.
Yeah.
That's primo writing.
I disagree with Jan's decision to stay and be part of the destruction. I would want to go back into space and, see what else is out there. But I am glad for my experience of it that Jan stayed because watching the end of the Earth was really cool.
Yeah, I cannot begin to imagine what this like Fire Mountain thing is. Like I have no adequate picture in my mind of what he's trying to describe. And then the fact that they tied it back into whatever was going on the overworld world was very interesting. That was very interesting.
I actually saw it like I can't remember what it's called, but like in Fantastic Beasts, there's just this like dark swirl of stuff. It's repressed magic in children.
The Obscurus?
Yes, that's how I saw it. Even though that has nothing to do with the Fire Mountain.
Right.
It was just the way that not Corellin, but the way that the Overlord on the planet responded to him trying to take a picture of it and trying to like capture its essence was very similar to how Newt Scamander treats the Obscurial in the movie.
Interesting. Yeah.
Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. Probably will never be finished.
It's also very good.
It is very good.
The first one. Second one's alright. Third one. But weren't there 3? It doesn't matter.
There's not 30.
Peggy says she enjoyed a little bit of philosophy about the countless raindrops would have merged into the kids are leaving like the countless raindrops merging into the ocean. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like it is only different because it is separate, right? And there's there's a lot of like religions and philosophies that have that idea, right? That like essentially we are, like pods popped off of some great underlying psychic, thing, and that we just pop up and drop back in or whatever. That's a very common theme, and everybody wants to explain where consciousness comes from. So saying that it's this great substrate below everything, and that we are just the bit that became aware of itself or whatever. That's not all that uncommon. At one point, I wish I'd written it down. The overlords actually make mention that all of time is cyclical. Like they just like drop that. It's like one sentence and they never say it again. But they kind of make a hint that maybe, kind of like an eternal return idea, that maybe this will all happen again in this way, and that's why they have to do this. Is sort of because like it's all coming back, and ultimately they've done this infinite times in the past, infinite times in the future, and there's no different.
Yeah.
And I'm into that idea. I like that a lot. So it was like a cool little shout out.
Yeah. And if this has to happen, if that's just how it is.
Peggy says, "What about the uranium? What bomb?" My book didn't have that description. It's after the kids go and become. It's after Corellin and the Overlords take all the kids off of Athens, and say that they're going to go protect them now. There's a period of time where the adults are all there on the island by themselves, and George's wife, Jean.
She wakes up in the middle.
She wakes up in the middle of the night, and she just kind of knows it's time. She takes him, and they like walk out to the beach or something, and then he like realizes that he loves her again.
No, they're just into the nursery. That's
Is
in
it,
my
oh,
book.
okay, in the nursery. Okay, maybe so. Maybe so. I thought they left the building anyway. And then the uranium deep beneath the ground like rushes together as it always wanted to for union that it can never have.
But I don't
because
think
it's
that
going
was
to
a
explode.
nuclear bomb. I think that that was just like the Earth's core, right? Like it was just the Earth eating itself.
No, it was a bomb.
It was a bomb?
Yeah.
Who put the bomb there?
They did.
Who was they? The Overmind?
No, the people on the island.
Why'd they put a bomb there?
So they could blow themselves up.
After the kids left?
Yes. So they realize that they have nothing left to live for, and they never like explicitly say it, right? But like you don't have uranium rushing together and just exploding. Like uranium is naturally forming; it doesn't explode, right?
Yeah.
You have to enrich it.
Yeah.
And so they put a bomb down there, and they don't tell anybody when it's going to blow up, right? Because they don't want to all just be like sitting around sad. She wakes up, senses that it's time, bang.
Oh, that's weird.
I don't know. Peggy seems to disagree, but like we can go back and double check, and I'm pretty sure it was a bomb. Um, I guess it could have been a volcano, but why uranium?
Right,
Volcanoes don't
'cause-
need uranium
But there was this talk of, how
Mhm.
Sparta was built on the
on a volcano.
volcano, and they kept saying it was dormant. But
Yeah, I mean they specifically said uranium.
right, yes,
Yeah,
I do remember
It's a
that.
bomb. Yeah.
But I just, it seemed to me to be not explicitly bomb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean it has to be a bomb.
I mean, it's sci-fi, it could be anything.
Yeah. Anyway, but the point was they decided that they were going to take themselves out,
Yeah, okay.
and they didn't like.
See, I thought that this was just the natural progression of it, right? Like, I thought it was just time for the Earth to end.
No, because I mean the Earth goes on for like another 80 years.
Yeah.
You know.
But it sounds like this happened all over the world, not just in this one spot.
So it actually says that some people went and just killed themselves, and some people did extreme sports that were no different than minor wars.
But for the rest of the people, it just seemed like the Earth had like a shift, like a geological shift that made it to where it just kind of like wrecked everything and changed the landscape. And
the specific reference to uranium
made you think that it was intentional.
Crashing two pieces of uranium together is how you make a bomb, right? So.
I don't know. Catch us up on the chat. I can't see what's going on.
She says, in the rest of the world, the description was meh. It was like 2 years less. Yeah, I mean, like some people just helping. It was just the particular way that Athens decided to end itself, right? And a lot of people decided to end themselves. It was just their way of doing it. And it may not have been a bomb, right? But it could have been like a homemade bomb, right? Why would Athens have a bomb? But they had this uranium, it looks like. But it definitely implied that they were aware that this was going to happen to them. That the island was going to explode, and it was just they just didn't know what day or time, and they just went about their lives knowing that it was going to happen. It's kind of the way that it implied. So.
Well, so speaking of George, he's just the worst character I've ever read, ever.
Why?
What a scumbag! I mean, like, I don't know. Just he'd forgotten about Carol or what's her name, and just, I'm like.
Well, so in their society,
who are you? What makes you
in their society, that was fine.
Right? Well, clearly it wasn't because he wanted to make sure his wife knew before she found out from someone else. Because she wouldn't have been happy with it, so it wasn't okay.
Well, fair, but like it was not frowned upon. I don't know. It might have upset.
Sounds like it would have been frowned upon. He's a scumbag.
Well, and anybody who realizes that, like, ooh, I love people because you're about to not exist anymore, I think that's weird.
Yeah.
You shouldn't take that.
Yeah. I mean, he moved his whole family there, and like, good thing Jean's just a good sport,
She was like crocheting and stuff, right?
She's like, yeah, nothing else to do. I was kind of laughing, when they first got into their house in New Athens, and she's like, "There's a kitchen in here? Like,
yeah.
I have to cook. Is there a spinning wheel also?"
Like a pavo.
Yes, because you're a pavo.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, she started knitting.
Yeah.
I also enjoy a good knit or crochet hobby.
Yeah. So the idea of Athens was like cool. Like, it's
I lived there.
Trying to
ride your bike everywhere.
Trying to preserve what was left of humanity or whatever, and of course it is that place that has the first breakthrough, right? Like the thing that wants to preserve humanity is the place that gives birth to the next step.
Man, right? Jennifer Ann was scary.
Yeah.
With her little rattle.
Yeah. I like horror movies. I don't like horror movies about horror babies. Horror babies are scary.
And that's really sad.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that was sad.
Yeah.
And also terrifying.
Yeah.
They knocked the moon out of rotation or whatever.
Mhm.
What?
Yeah.
See, that's kind of what I thought all the destruction was. It was, like the moon was knocked out of rotation, so we're getting some little earthquakes and stuff all over the earth. And
Yeah, that part's accurate. Right? That's at the very end,
oh, okay.
where whenever they are
But that's
messing with
just
the earth.
Jan.
Yeah, only Jan is left, and then these
Got it.
babies, right? So
Babies.
or whatever
The children.
the children's.
The overmind.
There's always points in books where you see the title, and what was interesting about Childhood's End is how many layers there are to that title.
Yeah.
Because it could reference our meeting with the overlords, and like our
Mhm.
cosmic childhood is over, and it could reference these children not being children anymore, and it could reference the fact that humanity has become this next thing.
Mm-hmm.
I also at one point thought that it could reference the overlords.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember exactly what about them now, but I mean, like there were so many places where that title was just perfect.
Yeah. Well, and yeah. In this book, I also kind of looked at it through the lens of 2001: A Space Odyssey, and in 2001, there's each step where you found the obelisk.
Yeah.
Okay.
Obelisk.
That word is really hard for me. All of a sudden humans are now the next thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that was the symbol of evolution,
Mm-hmm.
And so of course I thought about that with this as well, with the children absorbing into the overmind, and we saw that in Three Body Problem, where like once you are space living, you are no longer the human that we knew back on
Right.
Earth. You are the next thing, whatever that might be. It's just I enjoy that.
Yeah.
There's just a lot still to learn about like who we have been along this progression of how we are, what we are now.
Right.
And then we've got to be close to touching upon the next thing, right? I mean, we're constantly in the process of it, and so what are the important pieces and what aren't.
I think I think that there's just like a fallacy in thinking of it that way. You're right, like of like, well, the next thing must be coming
But
because
it's not the next thing. It's always in process.
right because
it's easy looking back because you can see like, well, this was clearly this, and this was clearly this.
Right.
But you're always becoming.
But if you take that clear things, parent.
Right. Yeah. No,
It's
there's
the
no
yeah.
clear. Yeah.
And the way I think about it is if you took like a sticky notepad and that you could flip
Mhm.
and you drew a picture on it, and on every picture you barely changed
Right.
one thing. Every picture looks identical,
Mhm.
but by the end, and you would say nothing has changed between this picture and the next, and nothing has changed
Right.
between this picture and next, and you would say it for every single picture, but the end picture and the beginning picture are absolutely different.
Right.
And that's the problem, right? And so what we see here is a punctuated equilibrium sort of thing, where there's this idea that evolution happens in a jump.
Right. It absolutely does not.
Well, so it can, and here, and by can, it's like on a time scale that is significantly larger than like this month or whatever, right? Like in the book. But that's what we see here is that we have this thing, and then something triggers.
But I
and it
mean,
happens.
how long have they been looking at humans? And it took all of humans' evolution
Mhm.
to become the next thing, right? Like whatever it is,
Mhm.
whatever process that we've gone through is what prepared humans
Yeah.
to be able to become part of the overmind.
Yeah.
And so it's just kind of exciting to know that you're always part of the process of the next thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's cool.
I'm aboard. That's cool.
Neat.
Yeah.
That's it. Let's see what else. So yeah, who saved Jeffrey? Was it an overlord or was it the overmind?
It appears to have been an overlord.
Because it sounded like
He specifically said it was that guy, right? The overlord that came to audit them.
audit.
Yeah, it actually was him because
Did he
George
acknowledge that it was
asks, how did you know? Because I thought you weren't watching us anymore. And they said, we said we wouldn't watch humans.
him? Oh, right.
Your boy isn't a human, so we're watching him.
That's right.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
says Peggy says it was Rush of Eric, and that's
Okay.
probably true. There was another Overlord with a V in there somewhere, but I think he was on the other planet.
Yeah.
I mean, all told, I think I really enjoyed it. There were some interesting ideas here. It could be a bit slow, and honestly, like I thought some of the descriptions were a little long-winded in some cases, and I kind of got glazed over on those. But this was another thing I was going to say. You know, Arthur C. Clarke wrote the screenplay for 2001: Space Odyssey, which you just referenced. And you and I have several times talked about what is up with the baby at the end of 2001.
Yeah.
Like, where did that come from?
Space baby.
Well, I wonder if that doesn't have something to do with this book, right? Like if he wrote the screenplay and he wrote this, and there's already this idea of like cosmic children,
right?
And I wonder if that was just floating around in his head.
And so, okay, the movie ends differently than the book ends, and there is kind of an explanation of like why they tried to do it that way in the movie.
Right.
It was trying to be very symbolic, but you really needed to have read the book to understand what the movie was trying to say.
Right.
But yes, it's about that. It's the leap to the next thing, you know.
I'm just tying that in.
And it's the cosmic baby. Yeah, the baby of the universe. Yeah. And that was weird.
It is weird, but
2001: Space Odyssey is quite a journey, but I think I'm ready to watch it again. It's been a while.
I'll watch it again.
The music's really cool, except the like that goes on forever.
Yeah. I think, you know, unfortunately, we have made basically no major space advances in my lifetime. Like basically none. Rather, we built a cool telescope. I mean, like we didn't. Let me put it this way: we have made cool discoveries. We haven't done anything cool. No moon stuff. No Mars stuff. I mean, like you know, to be a writer at this time just must have been so fascinating because. Like we're doing our first rockets, right? Like Yuri Gagarin was a thing that this guy got to witness. You know? Going to the moon for the first time was a thing that this guy got to witness, and then all that stuff kind of dies out, and maybe for good reason. There might be limited value to physically going and doing that, but like how exciting, you know? And it seemed like I think to us, while we all agree that like space is something attainable, we are like actively not attaining it, right? And so we agree that we could, but we're not. And I think there was so much optimism at this time because they were actually going out and doing it, right? Like, well, we just went to the moon. Well, so certainly we'll go to Mars. When I was in high school, we had this video that they showed in my 8th grade science class, and that would have been like the early 2000s, I guess. And it was made in the early 90s, maybe the late 80s. And the video said, whatever year that it was, the video said, in that year, we will have our first spaceborne humans on their way to Mars. And we're like,
oh yeah,
where? But there was so much optimism, you know, between like the 50s and the 80s, really. And that's just, I mean, what a cool time. You know, what a cool time. And we right now recognize that they didn't have the technology and the computers that we do. And so we all now recognize that like our space exploration is not going to be done by humans. It will be done by computers. And our concept of it has totally shifted. And they didn't have that.
Right. I mean, because there was no, when it's all imagination.
Yeah. Well, and their computers were the size of a school bus. You know?
And as powerful as our calculators are. You know, I mean, like,
exactly. Like what was it going to do for you?
What a time. It was just, I mean, what a terrifying time to be alive, honestly.
It was the worst of times.
Right, because you were just 2 seconds away from being nuked. I mean, that's horrible. And we're still, you know, and growing up in the 90s, we lived near downtown. We could still hear the air raid practice every day at lunch. You know, and
we practiced shelter in place under our desks at school.
I mean,
because we were next to a federal courthouse.
It sucks. You know, and that sucks that's where are we on our nuclear clock right now? We're like at midnight, aren't we? Or 11:59.
We're as close as it gets.
And will it ever come back down? You know, and that's a shame. And so that's also a big point, right, of sci-fi is, you know, we talked about this in part 1 and part 2 that we're always looking for someone else to save us, but the true answer is we are the only ones who can do that.
Right.
These overlords came and gave us a great golden age. We weren't fighting each other. We weren't killing each other. we got to just learn and exist and experience, and that's so cool.
Mhm.
No one's gonna come do that for us.
Right.
We have to be in charge of that. We have to take control of ourselves. And I don't know. I just think that that's the cool thing about sci-fi is it shows you how tiny you are.
Yeah.
Your stage is so insignificant.
Mm-hmm.
It's the world to us.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so tiny. And mom mentioned something in the chat, but it reminded me of Carl Sagan. Just when you really like zoom out, you just what rivers of blood were shed. For what?
Yeah. So, and I believe there are a couple lines in this book about that. Unless it was something else I read this week about we thought that we were the center of the world until we realized that the sun was the center, and we killed people over it, and then we realized that like the sun was in like a nonsensical arm of the galaxy.
That was in our movie last night.
Okay, that's what I was worried it might be. But
yeah. But we do all this just to be the momentary masters of a fragment of a dot. From Carl Sagan's Pale Blue Dot.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous that we can't get it together. We have all this power and we use it to harm each other rather than to, extend ourselves and uplift ourselves. Bull crap.
Monkeys and pants.
Oh, it just makes me so mad. Makes me so mad. What a waste. We have so much potential. We have unlimited potential. And that's why the overlords are jealous of us.
Yeah.
We have all this potential.
Yeah. Well, but and then like about like whatever the next step is, I think we just have to actively be that next step. You know what I mean? Like it is not natural for it is not natural for us to walk around and walk past strangers and not think they're going to kill us, right? Like that is a very new thing in the history of man, right? To see a total stranger and
feel safe.
Yeah, well, and there's still something in us that doesn't feel safe oftentimes, right? We were out picking stuff up on the street the other day around like a lot of people who didn't know me, and I would just like announce myself every night, like I'm coming up to grab this piece of paper that's on the ground or whatever, every time because there's a stranger here, whatever, right? Like there's something in our brains that is out looking for danger, like when Jan saw the eye, right? He was in no danger.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. That was cool.
He was in no danger, but that thing was the Star Wars like space worm. That's what that thing was. But we have
Fett went down into.
No. The whole Millennium Falcon goes in. They're on an asteroid.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, but we have to become that next thing, right? Like we right now, not like we give birth to it or whatever, but we have to make the world that we want. And there's I talk a lot at work about like ripple effects, and positive things have ripple effects as well, but and that's the thing about things evolving, right? It's like most of it don't make it, right?
Right.
Like there's a mutation and then it dies.
And it
gets
killed out.
But we all have to be that mutation, right? We all have to be that thing that tries to be something better, even if it gets you, because odds are it's going to get you. The people who are kind are the people who are taken advantage of. The people who are kind are the people who are abused. Because they're easy to take advantage of, right? So
yeah. But that is my favorite thing I think about sci-fi is you get to explore the what ifs and what could be. And it can be kind of depressing because you see how little we are and how insignificant we are. But I think there's also, like you're saying, there's that charge of responsibility of it's only up to us.
Right.
We are the only thing that we know of to make these decisions and to make these improvements. So, and I think people kind of look at like space exploration in the same way that it's very dark because it's so empty and it's depressing and it's all like we're all just gonna die or whatever. But it's not. It's also very uplifting too, right? Like it's.
Or just like people who have that attitude, like it is all dark and depressing, and we are all gonna die.
Yeah, but I mean, so like let's
right
make
now.
the best of it
like,
while we have it.
It's just it is a mirror that is obvious, right?
Yeah.
We look into ourselves and we're like, whoa, it's weird out there.
Like, hello.
But we are out there now, and it is weird. So,
yeah.
I like books that have nihilism in them. I think I like books that realize that like the ending is nothingness, and this is one of them. But I also like books that see that that's okay, right? And like Jan didn't like have hope or anything. He was just like, oh, I just want to stick around and do this, and then it's over, right?
Mm-hmm.
And certainly for like the human beings that move on and become this other thing, like they're not even a thing anymore, so they don't have any hopes and dreams. But you know,
Yeah.
there, the human race was going to end one way or the other, and it shouldn't be upsetting, and it shouldn't be disappointing. Like it is part of the way things are, and to embrace that and to still do what you love, right? He was doing science and trying to explore,
Mm-hmm.
right? He was the one human who had gone to the stars, so of course he was the one human that was going to stay for the end.
Yeah.
Of course.
Good for him for making it to the stars.
Peggy says, I see another side. I know how small the world is, and I see how we're all the same. How we're all the same amount of disappointing. Everywhere is wasting potential. Pessimism, man.
Aw, pigs.
Well, I mean, yeah. If everything was on the up and up all the time, I mean, that's sort of like an exponential growth, right? Like if everything was, if more people were doing better than not,
right,
then that just compounds and compounds and compounds, and we would be able to see it.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe we are seeing it, right? Maybe that is what this is. I wouldn't want to live in a different time other than today.
Definitely not a before time.
Definitely. Well, that's the only time we've got right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I could leap forward, I might be willing to do that. Yeah. Don't send me back. I won't make it. They'll kill me.
People are like, I wish I was a Viking. No, you don't.
I'm not strong enough. I will die. But yeah, like I very much want to know how everything turns out. Like if I were given the option to be able to live to the end, to see the end, even if it wasn't living, but if I was, I would want to. I want to know what
style, right?
I want to know what the universe looks like. I want to know what else is out there. I want to know how all this plays out on Earth. All this nonsense. Where does it go from here? Do we clean it up?
Yeah.
Do we just kill ourselves?
Yeah.
I'd like to know it. That'd be very sad, but I don't know.
But even when it ends, maybe something else starts up.
Right.
Like it's not sad. It's just
I
all endings are beginnings of something else.
I'm a little attached to humans.
Yeah.
Because that's all I know.
Yeah.
but yeah, I really wasn't sad, that humanity ended in the book.
No.
I was like, okay.
I didn't think it was like a good, like I disagree with the overlords that it is a good end.
It didn't feel warm and fuzzy for sure, but I sure wasn't attached to it. I don't know, but that's also just in the style of writing, I think. I wasn't attached to anybody.
Yeah. I'm attached to individuality, right? Like I'm attached to people being people. And so whenever they weren't people anymore.
You're like, ooh. Yeah, the baby scared me.
Yeah. Well, do you have anything else? We've gone for almost an hour.
I don't have anything else. Do you have anything else? So we can kind of give you a second and let us know what else you think.
I think this is another one of those books that I'm going to reference for a long time, right? Like there are ideas in this book that I've had that kind of give me like a language to talk about it with. Yeah. And so expect for this book to come back up for me.
So that reminds me, that was another thing I did like about the book is, there were so many things that like Jan saw on the Overlord's planet that were happening that he did not have words to explain.
Yeah.
And so there were also things happening on our planet that there were not words to explain. And I keep wanting to call him Asimov, but Arthur C. Clarke did a good job at making these things so vague.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
that they could not be explained.
Yeah. I really
Which is why, like, the fire mountain or whatever, we just have to make something up in our brains because we have no context.
Yeah.
Yep. So I did like that. That was clever and well done.
Yeah.
It's hard to write a book about things that don't exist.
Right.
And it's hard for an individual to create something that is unlike anything else that we've ever seen.
Right.
Because all we know is what we've seen.
Yeah.
Like you can't dream about strangers, really. Like you can't make up a never seen face.
Yeah. It's going to be a composite.
Right.
Least,
yeah.
Or describe a color that doesn't exist. Right. Good luck.
Describe a color.
Yeah.
Like to someone who's never seen color. I mean, like you just can't.
Well, I mean that's a good point, right? If all we ever had was green, and I said describe green, I mean like you could.
That and that and that and that and that.
No, you couldn't even do that because you have no concept of not that.
Of
right?
not that, yeah.
So, All right.
Yeah,
Peggy
sure,
says
that's
one
cool.
more thing. She says, "I just thought about it from when they take the kids to the end. It's about 70 years. Jane gets back, and it's over in a few days. Yeah,
Hmm.
and it's not quite a few days. If I'm not mistaken, they reference that he'd been on Earth maybe for 4 or 5 years
Okay.
before the true end.
Right.
Um,
Oh, because he didn't get bored. He practiced music and
yeah, yeah,
yeah, he
yeah.
like did all his
He hangs out
hobbies
and does some
and
stuff. Yeah.
I like that. I can keep myself entertained pretty well.
Yeah. But yeah, but I mean, like it was very quick. It was very quick.
Hmm.
So, um, all
I'm
right.
glad we read it.
Yeah.
I won't ever read it again, but I wouldn't turn down like the show
Yeah.
or something else by Arthur C. Clarke. That would I don't know. Maybe it would.
Yeah.
I'd put it at the bottom of the
I,
list.
I enjoy. I don't know. There's two kinds of sci-fi in my mind. There's one that that deals with like the ideas, and then there's the one that is the story, right? And so like I'm thinking of like The Expanse on Amazon. That is a story-based thing, and of course they have ideas. It's sci-fi, but it's a drama, right? Like
Yeah.
it's a
There's like a mystery.
yeah. There's something going
Yeah.
on there, and
Yeah.
you have to like them for different reasons. You know?
Hmm.
Like it's not a novel. It is trying to
Yeah.
process some concept. You know, so
Right. Like Fahrenheit 451 is a story.
sure,
There are concepts,
yeah, but it's a
but it's
story.
built around
Yeah.
the story. Yeah, and I like that better. Anthem, not sci-fi, but
Hmm.
that's a concept.
Yeah.
And not a story.
Yeah.
I think so.
All right. Well,
Yeah. Yeah, that's all I got.
yeah.
So we'll see you
Yeah.
in the syllabus episode for Salvage the Bones by Jesmond Ward.
And if anybody has any other sci-fi
Yeah.
ideas, I have had some ideas, and we're starting to poke around
We
about
are.
like sci-fi subgenres that we are interested in. But if you have anything that's like people don't read, I think I'm interested, or that people have not really heard of. We've hit some of the big ones, and I think it's time to go start looking for things that people might not be familiar with.
Yeah, we're getting ready to really kind of pump up our possible reading list, and so please start sending some more stuff our way.
Yep.
We've got some ideas.
Cool. Well, go ahead and grab you a copy of Salvage the Bones and watch the syllabus episode whenever that comes out in a couple hours. And we will see you next week.
Bye. Thanks.